So, normally at the beginning of the podcast, I try and masquerade my joke as a serious comment or question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do that today.
Okay.
I'm just going to say a joke.
Good. Let's have it.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Little old lady.
Little old lady who?
I didn't know you could yodel. Do you get it?
I do.
Little old lady. Ooh.
I do get it. I don't want to hurt myself, Pete, by laughing at this point in time. Don't want to do myself any internal injury. So what I'll do...
keep it in and save it for later.
I'll save it for later.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
But don't worry. Don't worry.
It's all downhill from here.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 7 of season 3 of the Constant Geekery podcast, whether you're listening to us on your favourite podcast platform of choice or on youtube.com/the Constant Geekery podcast. You are very welcome. Nice
to have you with us this week. We've got lots to talk about today. Got a few news items, which we'll come to in a minute, and we're going to talk a lot about the Mac Studio display today, because there's some reviews coming in, and we've got some thoughts on that.
We have.
We've got Erin with us today.
Hi.
That's
I'm
unfortunate.
Also here.
And it's fair to say that Erin has a new item of clothing. And I have deployed the air quotes. Can you show everyone your...
This is my jumper, and it is beautiful, and I will be taking no criticisms about it.
You look like you're from the 70s. Because what the viewers can't see, and indeed the listeners definitely can't see, which, trust me, is a good thing, is that you've paired that jumper with some corduroy trousers.
Corduroys are cool.
It does look like you should be singing a song on Rainbow. Something like that.
Do you even know what Rainbow is?
No.
No,
it's a
before her
television
time.
Program from the 80s.
I had some corduroys when I was about 3.
There's nothing wrong with corduroys, but when you're 3.
Wow.
Yeah, and Tom, we're talking about you now, not the Tom we normally talk about, Mr. Purple Corduroy Man.
He knows. He's listening.
he knows. You prepared a limerick last week.
I did.
I have also prepared a limerick.
Have you?
Yes.
Go on.
There was a young woman called Erin, of whom we often ask, what you wearing? But when you meet someone that dense with no fashion sense, one does often wonder why we're caring.
I'm so done. I'm so done.
Someone did actually express concern that we were giving Erin too much grief last week. So, Erin, would you like to just say for the record, not at gunpoint, that you're okay with
I'd like to confirm that I definitely cry myself to sleep every night because of this horrible working environment.
This is my face of caring.
Yeah. Anyway,
shall we do the news?
Actual tech news for those that have tuned in for such things.
New iPad Air, Pete.
Yeah, apparently it has some build quality issues. Possibly been made in a Tesla factory, I don't know. We've seen something from Mac Rumours saying that people who've got their hands on one are finding that the aluminium is noticeably thinner, so much so that when you're holding it, you can almost feel the battery through the back.
Through it. Is that thin?
That's what they're saying. Sort of
so the case flexes and creaks and
basically a bit like when you wrap your roast beef in a bit of foil after you've cooked it to let it rest for a while.
Okay,
that's a cooking term.
Thank you for that. That's quite sad. My Tom, he's bent his iPad Air. It has a noticeable kink in it, but it didn't break the glass or anything, and it works fine, and he doesn't care, so that's fine. But that's the iPad Air 4, and he can't think for the life of him what he might have done to bend it, unless he's just too scared to tell me. Tom, are you too scared to tell me?
You haven't let it anywhere near Yuri Gagarin. No, not Yuri Gagarin, Yuri Geller.
He was an astronaut.
Yeah, Yuri Geller was the one I was thinking about. If you don't know who Yuri Geller is, then look it up.
Or don't. So if the iPad Air is even thinner now in version 5, then that doesn't bode well, does it? If it was already bendable in version 4, then version 5, cutting back on the quality.
Unless it's a hidden Apple feature that they're actually making the device foldable, and they just haven't told anyone.
I think possibly not.
You know when you have a Kit Kat, I'm not sure if it's still the same now, but you used to have it's not the same now, but you used to have a foil on the Kit Kat. And as a kid, do you remember rubbing your thumb on the foil so you could see the Kit Kat emblem that was embedded in the chocolate through the foil?
Yeah.
I wonder if you run your finger over the back of the iPad Air, you'll see sort of like the battery logo or Qualcomm somewhere or something.
Interesting idea. It's a bit sad though, isn't it? I mean, do Apple really need to cut costs like that? Assuming that it's true, but it's not just Mac Rumours that are reporting this. So we have seen it in a few places, but they might all be reporting on each
the
other.
same, so that often happens.
So who knows? Be interested to know anyway. Have you got an iPad Air 5? And if you have got one, could you confirm whether or not to you it feels noticeably thinner
than something you've had before?
Yeah, interesting.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Mac Studio webcam disappointments. Now, we are going to talk about this a little bit more in our main topic of the week, but there have been a lot of rumours about the webcam on the Mac Studio looking soft.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about why that is in a minute. But interestingly, Apple are saying that they have discovered an issue where the system is not behaving as expected. This is an Apple spokesman being quoted here. And they will be making improvements in a software update, but we don't know what those improvements are and the time frame for them.
You'd think, wouldn't you, with the launch of such a premium new product, that they might have. Oh no, it's Apple, isn't it? Sorry,
no,
my bad.
We're the beta testers,
of course.
Yeah.
I do have some news. Erin's going to help me with this one, but I happened to take a trip on Saturday.
On your magic rocket ship?
Yes, absolutely. And I went to the local town/city where there is indeed an store of Apple.
Ooh.
Would you like me to come and place that?
Yes, please.
And what did you get?
Well, I got one of these, Pete.
You kept that quiet. That is really kind of you. Thank you.
No, it's not for you.
Oh.
But I thought you might like to have a look at it.
Look at that, everyone.
This is Pete's reaction to the Mac Studio. In case you're listening and you haven't seen us on YouTube, Pete is reacting to the Mac Studio live. I've kept this very quiet.
You have. I didn't know this was coming. This is impressive. Somehow not surprised, but also quite impressive. That would be quite good for your favourite cheese, wouldn't it? Parmesan. That would be great. Yeah, it does look. I tell you what, it looks like.
Go on.
Have you seen the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie?
Yes.
Have you seen Deep Thought?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah? It's Deep Thought. That's what it is. There's the eye. No, there's the eye. And it's Deep Thought. There we go. Probably more processing power than Deep Thought, though. It could probably work out the answer to life, the universe, and everything in seconds.
It probably could. There is a video coming up on the channel, and by the time the podcast goes live, the video will already be up. So everybody who's watching this will already know that this exists, because I've done a video about it.
But I didn't.
But Pete didn't.
You scamp.
Erin and I recorded the video, and you have to watch the video to enjoy Erin's amazing B-roll. Erin's very proud of it, aren't you, Erin?
I am. It was amazing.
Is it colour graded this time, Erin?
Yes.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah, go on.
What have you got inside it? Can I guess?
Yeah, actually, that would be fun. Go on, see if you can guess.
Well, this is going to have to be the object of deduction.
Because we're not making this up, folks. Pete genuinely doesn't know.
I thought
one
a
of these.
Walkman was coming on set. It doesn't make sense to me that you've gone for an M1 Max in this, because we've got M1 Maxes. So what would that prove? So it's got to be an M1 Ultra.
You said an M1 Ultra, and our survey said...
Is it a Max?
It's the M1 Max. This is the entry-level model. Now, I'll tell you for why.
Okay,
I'll tell you for why. Because look at it, Pete. Look at the thermal envelopes and possibilities of cooling that exist in this compared to that, compared to your 14-inch MacBook Pro there. You got the same. It's the same chip as what's in my MacBook Pro. So the 24-core GPU, 32 gigs of RAM. But look at all this cooling capacity. So obviously, Apple have turned up the chip to 11, and it's going to be faster than the laptop.
Okay. And what memory have you got in that?
32 gigs.
Okay.
So it is.
It's basically the same as your laptop then.
Basically, apart from the SSD, because this comes with 512 and the laptop comes with 1 terabyte.
I am genuinely interested to see how that will perform against your basically the same laptop.
I think a lot of people would be interested, and that is what I was most interested in more. And it wasn't just, obviously, it's the price is outrageous for the M1 Ultra. That's a big investment, and I've already got a big workstation. But I was curious to see how it would compare, because if you can, I mean, this is 2/3 of the price of the equivalent chip in the laptop. So the question is, if you spend 50% more on the laptop, are you getting less computer, or do you get more by spending less and have this? So anyway, I'm going to answer that question in the video, which is already up. But don't leave the podcast now to go and watch it if you haven't seen it already.
No,
watch the podcast and then enjoy the video, which will be on the main channel.
I don't often get surprised anymore, so thank you, because that was a nice surprise. Yeah, I wish I had a Mac Studio display to show you now to surprise you, but I don't.
Oh. Anyway, moving
on to the Mac Studio display.
We haven't. We've missed an important item of news.
Well, it's not on my list.
Well, no, because I forgot to write it on the notes, Pete.
What's the point of notes then if you don't put stuff on there? Like, reveal that to Pete.
Erin, you've got a new piece of tech that you're going to be reviewing on the channel. Can you demonstrate it to the camera?
I will show the camera now. For those who can't see, it is a Walkman.
What type of Walkman, Erin?
An old one. It's a Sony one.
What media does it take, Erin?
So what do you mean?
What do you put in it?
Oh, like
don't say batteries. Do not say batteries.
I wasn't going to say batteries. Like for really like old tapes that like they used to do in like, I don't know, like the 70s or something.
The really like
tapes.
Old like tapes that they did in like the 70s or something. I think a lot of our audience feel quite old right at the moment, Erin. The funny thing about this is that Erin said to me that she was interested in getting one of these things, but she has got absolutely no clue what a cassette Walkman is or what it's going to be like.
I can't wait till she skips to the next track.
Or tries to download a new album.
Yeah.
It's going to be amusing. So what I said to her is, you need to make a video and let's get a Walkman in and we'll make that happen. So you can stop playing with it now, Erin.
And if you do feel really old, if it makes you feel any better, Erin was invented after the internet was.
Oh,
yeah,
that's crazy.
I was invented in 2001
by quite a lot. Yeah.
In fact, you probably were born after the last Walkman was made, last cassette Walkman.
Probably, yeah.
By Sony, I mean. Oh, well, maybe they made cheap models for a while afterwards.
They're probably making them again now with some of the resurgence in that.
Well, they should. There's a lot of interest. You know, the ones that the original, the one that featured in Guardians of the Galaxy, those are going for over $1,000 now on eBay. And they're awesome. Rubbish.
They're awesome.
It's not. It's absolute rubbish.
Orange foam on it and stuff.
No.
Have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy?
No.
Ah, well.
So, shall we get to our main topic? Since we're probably rudely quarter of an hour into a podcast or something. The Mac Studio display has not had entirely glowing reviews from all.
No, it's being, I think it's fair to say, slated by a lot of people.
But not by anybody who was given one by Apple to review, it would seem.
No, so are we going to talk about that first?
Well, why not?
Because it does seem that if you are gifted one of these pre-release review models or early release review models, it does seem that your review comes back overwhelmingly positive.
It does seem that way.
Time.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got any kind of observation, not even criticism, to make of it, then you probably won't be getting any of that goodness anytime soon. Which is probably why we don't get stuff from Apple, because we're objective and honest, as opposed to, oh, it's so lovely.
My precious.
Yeah, so
I think they also require the channels to do lots of glamour shots of extreme high quality of the product. They do seem to favour that as well.
Which we could do, but we don't want to.
It's interesting though. I saw a review from Mary Spender, and she's a musician. I've never seen her review Mac stuff before, but Apple have sent her a Mac Studio and a Studio Display, and she's waxing lyrical, no pun intended, on how she can use it to advance her music.
Interesting. Okay.
So Apple obviously, it's all carefully calculated. But
Anyway,
some
reviews
people have
from-
gone out and spent their own money on these things.
Shock horror. And what do they think of it? What sort of feedback are we getting?
Well, let's start with the webcam, seeing as we already mentioned that. So you've got a 1080p webcam
Ultra wide.
with an ultra-wide lens so that it can do the center stage thing. But it seems that when you're not using center stage,
Yeah.
it's basically 720p cropped in, and it does look a bit soft. And I've seen a side-by-side with the LG Ultrafine, which is the display that Apple sold prior to the studio display, which also has a webcam, and the one in the LG that's from years ago just looks so much better.
Interesting.
So,
How old is that LG?
I don't know, 6 or 7 years?
Yeah. And what was the webcam in that?
1080p.
Right, but no center stage, so it's just, and no ultra wide, so it's just using the.
And no A13 chip in there doing the image signal processing and making you look prettier.
Yeah, that's a lot for some.
We don't have an
people.
A13 in our camera, sorry folks.
Yeah, just in case you were wondering, how do they look that pretty? It's all natural. Yeah, so
I
it's
don't think anyone's ever wondered that when they've been looking at us, Pete.
No, and that's probably why so many people just listen. But yeah, cropping in to 720, it is a bit soft, and hopefully that software update that we mentioned in the news might deal with it.
You might add some extra megapixels into the camera.
Well, it might be to do with the image processing. You know,
Could be.
Let's give Apple the benefit of the doubt, as we always do. What about speakers?
So I think this all depends on your perspective. So I've seen people rave. I mean, obviously they're going to be great. The speakers in these laptops are just phenomenal. But in a laptop, you kind of expect crummy sound. So when they sound as good as they do, and you really need to hear it in person, it's astonishing.
Yeah, these are incredible. I actually had to borrow my son's older generation MacBook Pro for something over the weekend, and the sound coming out of it, by laptop standards, was still good, but noticeably worse than the new MacBook Pros.
Yeah,
They are really good.
they are good. But if you're talking about a desktop computer and you're a creative pro who's interested in audio, so you've got some people approaching it from that perspective. What they're saying is, well, it's a bit pointless having the speakers because they're going to have, studio monitors. And by monitors, I mean speakers on their desk, like I do at home. So do you need speakers then in your monitor? So some people who are buying it don't need it. So they're paying for something they don't need and that they don't rate either because from their perspective, it's not good enough.
Yeah, and I get that, and you probably fall into that category because you have a very attuned ear. But I think there's also a lot of people. I'd probably put myself in this if I was in the market for and had the budget for a studio display. I probably would be quite happy with those speakers and enjoy the experience they give. And I would also feel shortchanged if there were no speakers in it, or if they were crummy.
Yeah.
So,
well, I haven't heard them, so it's impossible to say. I'm sure they're really good. I never listened to an iMac and thought, God, that's rubbish. And they've taken it on a notch from there. So I'm sure they're great. I mean, I edited the video we just spoke about, this morning on my laptop, and I forgot to bring in my reference headphones that I usually use to do the audio, so I had to use my MacBook Pro speakers, and hopefully it sounds okay.
well, I will listen and let you know.
Thank you. So your mileage may vary. You might think it's great. Something interesting I saw in the studio display is that it's got storage in there, along with your A13 Bionic chip. 64 gigabytes of storage, no
You're
less.
kidding?
Right? And apparently it only uses 2 gigabytes of that.
So what's that for then?
Well, I would expect that they need that additional space for firmware updates and future proofing. But it does, and it apparently is also running iOS 15.4.
On the studio display?
Yeah, so behind the scenes, that's what's running under the hood.
So basically it's a Mac.
Yeah, it is. It's an actual computer, but you can't use the computer bit of it without attaching another computer.
Yet.
I wonder whether maybe they've got some plans for it in the future.
Some kind of handoff or something like that.
It's clearly got, a measure of future-proofing built into it.
Interesting. And that in of itself, can kind of possibly counter some of the arguments around the value for money on it if it's got that kind of potential for the future in it. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like and what it transpires to do. Could it be, and this is where a less scrupulous channel might start hypothesizing, mightn't it?
Well, we do our own fair share of hypothesizing, Pete.
So what could if you're running iOS 15.4 and it's got 64 gigs of storage, could it be used as an Apple TV?
Yes.
Okay. Could it be used as an Apple equivalent of a Chromebook? Basic browsing and watching films and stuff like that.
Well, it could do everything that an iPad does.
I did say it's the world's largest iPad.
Yeah, but it doesn't have a touchscreen. But if you had a trackpad, you could use it like an iPad.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
how do you know it hasn't got a touchscreen?
Because it doesn't, Pete.
But it might have. It's just not been enabled yet. Wouldn't that be awesome?
I know you're only joking, but some people will take you seriously. We don't think it's a touchscreen. When it comes to the panel itself, lots of people are saying this is the same panel, same aging panel, as they like to refer to it, as is in the LG Ultrafine 5K, which in itself is the same panel that's in the 27-inch iMac.
Yeah. But
I saw an interesting video from MaxTech where they put the LG Ultrafine, the wobble fest of a monitor with the weird forehead.
Yeah,
thing.
I know the one. Yeah.
And
not a good-looking monitor.
It's not really, is it? And the way it wobbles around, it's absolutely ridiculous.
It is like a bowl of jelly.
But they put them side by side and played the same footage on it, and it's obvious that it's not. Well, it certainly doesn't look like the same display. Now, it could just be a case that the backlighting is different because it's brighter. It's 600 nits, not 500. Okay. It could be that it's been calibrated differently. That's entirely possible. So it could be the same display. Won't rule that out. But it doesn't look like the same display. When you put them side by side, the lighter parts of the screen are lighter and the darker parts are darker. Okay. So there's a greater dynamic range. There's much better contrast. And because it's 600 nits, it actually allows you to enable HDR content, whereas the 500 nits monitor doesn't.
Interesting.
Now, obviously, it's only going 100 nits brighter, so it's not proper HDR, but nonetheless, it's a nice panel. It's got nice contrast, and I'm not convinced it is the same panel that's in the LG.
Do you think that's just haters hating?
I think it's because it hasn't got the specs that perhaps they're expecting. Here we go.
Every time
the sneeze fest.
What is it with this?
Some people are expecting specs and it doesn't have them, so they assume it must be the old display, because why on earth would Apple not put in these features? So let's talk about the features that are supposedly missing.
Okay.
Starting with HDR.
Yeah, which probably should have HDR for 1,500 quid, shouldn't it?
It should, but that would require a different backlighting system.
Okay.
And if you're going to go mini LED, well, that's the Pro XDR, and that's a lot more money, isn't it?
And we did talk last week about there needs to be that differentiation. Otherwise, why would you go and get a Pro XDR?
Well, you wouldn't. You'd just get this one. So for marketing reasons, I suspect it's not HDR, but also, you need to have a different backlight system. It's either got to be OLED or it's going to need to be mini LED, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So what about the Pro Motion thing?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are making a fuss about this, but I have to question, it does seem to be a lot of gamers being obsessed, or at least the gaming mentality, being obsessed with higher frame rates. But why do you need that on a creative studio display? I mean, when would you be needing 120 hertz or more refresh rate?
I can't think of a single occasion where I've needed that on my main work machine for any of my creative work in the past 25 years.
No, and even if there are times when footage will be shot higher than, say, 60 frames per second.
Yeah,
but that's normally when you're doing slow motion.
Usually, yeah.
So again, that negates that.
And a video editor who is working with high frame rates and needs to see playback at those frame rates, they will have bought a professional display that can handle those frame rates.
Because it's part of their workflow and part of what they need.
Yeah. And we're not talking 1,500 quid anymore for those kind of displays. We're talking vast amounts of money.
Well, it's Pro XDR and above, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even Pro XDR is only 60 hertz, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
true.
This is, I just can't see that you'd need it. I don't think video editors need it, personally.
So what about, I mean, okay, I'm going to be devil's advocate for a minute and say, but what about for gaming?
Yeah, okay. But how many Macs in the current Apple lineup, outside of the Mac Pro with the biggest graphics cards, would be able to run a top-tier game at 5K and consistently hit a minimum frame rate of 120 frames per second?
There isn't one.
I don't think there
I
is.
stand to be corrected. Maybe there is, but is that what Apple are aiming at?
Well, I mean, you could play mid-tier games and older generation games at those kind of frame rates, but and I guess some people would want to do that because of esports and other things. But those kind of customers are not the target market for this display.
And they're probably not going to be using a Mac for it. They're probably going to be using
they'll be on a PC.
PC.
And they'll have a proper gaming monitor because why wouldn't you? And I think there's a key thing that people are missing here. And, because they've got the phone and it's like, oh, my phone's got ProMotion, or I've got the iPad Pro and it's got ProMotion. So they're used to having this 120 hertz. So they think, well, I need that.
I need it.
I must have it all the time. I can't possibly look at, 60 hertz content anymore.
Dishevel my eyes with 60 frames per second.
But I've never sat in front of a 60 hertz monitor thinking this is laggy.
Feeling like you're slumming it.
No, you really don't.
It's a numbers game again, isn't it? We talked about this last week. It's got to be the higher number. The higher number's better. And it just, I have to praise Apple for this because they don't always do that. Obviously, sometimes they do and they spin things. But I would say in this case, I think they've done the right thing.
So let's do some numbers.
Okay.
So the 5K resolution compared to 4K. And when we're talking about 4K here, we're talking about Ultra HD, so 4 times 1080p. Yeah. How many pixels? You are going to know because I've put it in the notes, Pete. But
Shall I pretend I don't?
Pretend like you've just done this sum in your head.
Okay.
So think about the resolution for UHD, 4K. How many pixels approximately do you think that might be?
It's going to be more than 100,000.
It certainly is.
Yeah. Maybe more than 1 million.
Yeah, should we just cut to the chase?
Okay, yeah, sorry, because I don't know what it is. What is it, Dave?
8.294 million. So 8,294,400 pixels. That's 4K resolution. So I'm going to put a question to you, Erin. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you've been paying attention over there and not falling asleep.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so if 4K resolution is 8.2 million pixels, how many pixels more is 5K resolution?
Is it just like double? No, it's like the set amount plus. Yeah, so times 2. Yeah, times it by 2.
You're going to times it by 2?
12.
Yeah, you're sat there with your head in your hands because her logic makes no sense whatsoever. But oddly enough, she's almost right, folks.
That's why my head's in my hands, because nothing she says makes sense, and yet she's almost right.
And let's be clear, Erin does not have the notes in front of her.
I do not.
She can't read.
It's actually 6.4 million additional pixels. So the 5K resolution of that display is 14,745,600 pixels, which is...
Hang on. Carry the 4. 78% approximately more.
Yeah, 78% more pixels from 4K to 5K. So just bear those key... statistics in mind, because we'll come back to those as well. Now, I've then done some bandwidth calculations.
Have you?
I have. And if my mathematics are correct...
And you'd like to think they are.
I would like to think they are.
Because you have got the world's largest calculator.
I have several of the world's largest calculators, and I don't know how to use them. No.
Honestly, his calculators, you could build a Hadron Collider design with one of them. They're ridiculous.
I'm a geek and I like calculators. I keep buying calculators.
They've got more processing power than all of NASA for the moon missions.
Probably true. Okay, so imagine 5K resolution it's 10. We want 10-bit color, so we want 1 billion colors, not 16.7 million, and we want to run at 120 frames per second.
Okay.
So by my calculations, you need 63.7 gigabits per second of bandwidth to drive that.
Okay, so that's even with display stream compression, Thunderbolt's not going to get anywhere near that. So what's that, 40?
Well, Thunderbolt is 40 gigabits. So yeah, display stream compression, I don't know how effective that would be. Could it bring 63.7 gigabytes down to 40 gigabits? Maybe, but bear in mind it's also got on the monitor, the webcam, the speakers, and the 3 USB-C ports.
Yeah.
So you'd kind of need a bit of bandwidth available for those. So I'm not sure.
You'd need some bandwidth for the power as well, wouldn't you, Erin?
Yeah.
You should have seen that coming, Erin, really. I don't think it's technically possible. I'm sure that there's someone out there whose mathematics and calculators are far greater than mine and could confirm or deny that for us.
Anna, if you could, please.
I don't think it's possible.
Okay.
And so then you end up in a situation where you've got I remember Dell doing one of these screens way back, and you had to have 2 DisplayPort connections for it, and it behaved like 2 screens.
Yeah.
But so you'd end up in a situation where your Mac Studio display has to have 2 Thunderbolt connections running from the machine. That defeats
Why?
the object of
Yeah.
what it's for. Another argument would be, well, you could use if they put HDMI in with the latest standard, would that be able to do it? Well, maybe it would, but people want more than one display. And Apple are not going to put loads of HDMI ports on the back of their computer. They're
You've got
going
one
with
on
Thunderbolt. There is one. It's HDMI 2.0 though, so that means 4K 60 max.
That's not going to work then, is it?
But that HDMI port with the 4K 60 max is specifically for video editors who would have a 4K TV up on the wall, and it would, for doing previews and stuff in the room, and that's what the HDMI port would be used for.
Yeah.
So all of these arguments for having ProMotion or 120 hertz display, I don't think they make any mathematical sense. But then I suppose the kind of people that are making those arguments perhaps haven't considered that, because they're working on what marketing is telling them, from other manufacturers, particularly in the phone game. It's the end of the world, isn't it? If you've got a 60 hertz display on your phone now.
Yeah, it's like you're in the medieval ages.
Medieval. Is that like medieval but more meddlesome?
Yeah, that's exactly Middle Ages.
Speaking of meddling and evil and phones with 60 hertz displays, Erin, any
Yes.
progress on acquiring yourself an iPhone SE?
No, I think I'm going to do it next month.
Nothing happens quickly with you, does it, Erin?
I just don't feel the need to rush.
That's fair enough. We look forward to seeing it if and when you do acquire one.
By the time she does it, it'll be the iPhone 4 SE.
Probably. I gave you a perfectly good phone
Yes,
the other day, Erin, to review, and
Yeah.
you've been using it and enjoying it, haven't you?
It's beautiful.
Excellent. We're looking forward to your review on that too.
Okay, so getting back to what we're talking about, rather than no one wants to hear about Erin. All the comments, I don't know if you've noticed, no one really wants more Erin in the comments. So with her hairy arms,
Let's talk about
is
the
the
price.
really that outrageous?
It's just on the same wavelength.
It's almost like we've got notes.
It is, isn't it? Is it that outrageous? I don't know. What do you think?
Not me.
Yeah, 50. So in the UK, it's £1,500. Okay, no. First, I'm going to ask Erin because she's very insightful and she might randomly get something right. The Mac Studio display that we've been talking about is £1,500. Erin, how do you feel about that?
For the specs that it provides for you, and if it's something that you're actually after, then it's good. But for like the average broke person like me, it's not good because I wouldn't use it.
Based on that recommendation, 10 million Mac Studio displays have now been purchased. You know that, don't you? Erin said it was good.
Erin, I don't mean to, show a lack of confidence in you, but you did press record, didn't you, on the video assist before we started?
Yeah, I did. Yep. Why would you say that?
Because I just saw it out of the corner of my eye, and I'm thinking, surely it has a red frame around it when it's recording.
No,
That would be.
just for numbers. Just
We're
the
not even
numbers
going
are
to
red.
edit this out, folks. That's how professional we are.
Oh, you gave me a heart attack.
I know Erin's camera's recording, so if nothing else, we've got that, but no audio.
A whole podcast of Erin with no audio. I actually think a lot of people watch that.
Yeah, but
You're weird. Anyway, fine. Going back, is it that outrageous? I was having a talk with our managing director of our digital agency about this.
where are you now?
Yes, because
Is that because he wants one?
he does want one. Yeah, but he can't now because he's bought himself a whole new wardrobe of shoes. And he made a very good point though, which is what other 5K displays on the market are there at that price point?
The LG Ultrafine,
The Wobble Fest.
the Wobble Fest with the chin. Well, you can take
It's not a chin.
you
it's a
can take
forehead.
it off the stand,
Yeah,
and actually going for the LG, it's got a better webcam.
that's true.
I don't think there's anything else that's better about it. I mean, the Mac Studio is a much better build. It's got a glass front. It's got a sturdy stand. It's got the speakers. It's got or better speakers, I should say. And it doesn't have a forehead.
But the LG has got a better webcam.
It does have a better webcam, and that apparently is incredibly important on your 5K display.
Yeah.
It is also height adjustable, although,
What, the LG?
yeah, though it does take a good 10 minutes for it to stop wobbling after you've adjusted the height.
Yeah. And if you breathe while using it, it
Or
will
knock
wobble
the
again.
table.
Yeah.
But what you can do is take it off the stand and put it on a Visa mount. So you could have it on an arm attached to your desk and have a nice sturdy display. And it is £300 cheaper.
But it wobbles.
But it wobbles.
And it's got a forehead. And it's not as nicely built. I mean, the Apple one is the usual Apple jewellery, isn't it?
Yes, but I would argue Apple were able to build the iMac, and I can't remember the starting price that the 27-inch iMac was, but it wasn't entirely dissimilar to £1,500, and you were getting an entire computer.
Yeah, but that was a long time ago, relatively speaking. Now, things like
3 weeks.
inflation and... Yeah, but they've held the price, haven't they? Inflation, supply chain, materials, everything costs more now. And it's new.
But they're saving all that money from the aluminium they're not using on the iPad Air 5.
That's yeah.
Perhaps it's all gone into this.
Oh, maybe it's environmental.
They probably needed it for the Mac Studio and
Yeah.
all that. I think it could do with being £300 cheaper. And-
Like a £1,200.
Yeah, and I think you'll be able to get it for that price if you hold on for a few more months. I think third-party resellers, I mean, I've already seen them discounted, so it won't be long before they do get discounted down there. And at £1,200, yeah, I can see it being reasonable value for that. I mean,
the Thunderbolt and the Cinema displays were $999, weren't they?
they were for the big one. Yeah, and I think about at home. I've got a 32-inch Dell.
Monitor.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember their Pro range. What's it called? Ultra Sharp, which is a 4K display, very nice display, but it wasn't cheap. It wasn't as much as £1,200 or even £1,000.
But is it made out of aluminium and glass?
No, it's not. And it's also 4K, so it has how many pixels less?
About 78% less.
About, yeah. Well, actually,
No.
no, that wouldn't work that way around.
No.
But it's about 6.4 million pixels less, give or take.
Yeah, which is what?
That's
why?
a lot of
It
pixels.
feels like you're just slumming it, really.
So yeah,
There's another thing to
Go
bear
on.
in mind. Even if you buy it at £1,500, but particularly if you can get it for less, if it's being discounted, it's an Apple device, it will hold its value.
they do hold their value. Yeah, you can sell your Apple kit on and get a lot of your money back, whereas with your PCs, I've been using the Razer notebook on the channel for comparisons.
I think you've mentioned this before, but say it again.
Well, that was up until very recently. In fact, I think it even is still on Razer's website for the thick end of £1,900 or something like that. I only used it for about 3 months before I got the Mac notebook, and then I just used it for testing. And I got 750 quid for it.
And that's a really important thing to remember when you're
Right.
buying a PC laptop, Windows laptop. No offence, because we are not Apple fanboys, but they do not hold their value as well,
No.
sadly.
And we've had that play out so many times over the history of our business. And it's one of the reasons why we do go with Apple, because when you want to upgrade and move something on, if you're not of the mindset where you keep something for its entire life, I mean, we tend to cycle our equipment.
Well, we're business owners, so that does factor into a lot of what we talk about on the channel is buying things from a business perspective as opposed to a personal investment, which you may keep for a decade, and that's possibly a different consideration. But we've been through that before.
We have, and getting some money back on disposal could be a good thing. But I suspect actually on a display, it is one of those things. I mean, we do keep our displays, don't we? So maybe it's not relevant.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, we've still got some Thunderbolt displays knocking about, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
And they're still lovely.
Yeah. So let's talk about Mac Studio computers now, because there's been some reviews. We're not going to spend a long time on this. We just want to talk about the teardown.
Why don't you put it back in the middle, just so that people know? I'll move your cup out of the way so you can dehydrate.
So, there we go. We'll just pop it in the middle there. So if you're watching on YouTube,
so
you
we're going
can
to tear
gaze
this
upon
down,
it.
are we?
No.
Can you bring the crowbar, please, Erin?
So Apple don't design this as a user accessible thing. So if I turn it to this way, so folks who are watching on YouTube can see, but this black ring that's on the bottom, which incidentally is not very grippy, if you even putting an SD card in the slot and the computer slides around.
Yeah, so you just have to have a rubber desk.
Basically, yeah. I can't see any problems with that at all.
No.
If you pull this black ring off, which will damage it, then there are 4 screws which you can then access the inside of the computer with. And so various channels have done the teardown of this thing. I'm going to pop it back that way.
Thank you.
In fact, I'm going to turn it round to the back because I think that's its prettiest view. I like all the ports and the engineering of the grill.
The grater.
The grater on the back.
The Parmesan grater.
So what's been found, and again, I think it was Max Tech actually, they took theirs apart, and they found 2 socketed SSDs in there.
Ooh, interesting. Socketed. So does that mean there's an upgrade path? You can plug in new SSDs?
No, I don't think it's intended that way.
Right.
It's a possibility, and I think they did propose this as a possibility that Apple might offer an upgrade. So you could take your Mac Studio to the Apple Store and purchase a hard drive upgrade, that would be amazing if you could do that. Upgrade the SSD, sorry, not hard drive. Will it be user upgradable? No, I don't think so, because of course with the security enclave thing that exists in the Apple System on chip,
match the SSDs to the device.
Yeah,
right.
So you can swap the drives between the slots, and they do still work.
Interesting.
But I don't think you would be able to pop a new one in. And before everyone gets really excited here, it's not like you're going to be able to go out and buy an off-the-shelf NVMe drive.
Yes, you can.
Well, you can. You won't be able to put it in your Mac Studio.
Why not?
Because the controller is in the system on chip. All they are is NAND flash modules.
Oh, that's so cute.
That's it. Which incidentally is something that we said a long time ago in our videos about the SSD, and why Apple has done it the way they've done it is that they've built their own controller, which is why we didn't need to worry about all of the drive gate issues and everything else, because Apple know what they're doing, and they've created a system that works like that. So it's not like you can just go and get an NVMe drive and pop it in. And they're also not full size either. They're quite small.
Okay.
And looking at the physical size of them, I don't think it would be possible to get 8 terabytes of NAND flash onto one. So I suspect if you buy the Mac Studio spec with 8 terabytes, what you'll actually get is 2 SSDs in there. That's what the second slot's for. So you'll have 2 4 terabytes, and then they'll do a RAID 0, RAID 1, whatever it is for striping. And I think they did that with the Mac Pro, and Apple did offer an upgrade kit for the Mac Pro.
They did.
With SSDs. So that's, I think, what people are hoping this might mean.
And I wonder, with the right to repair and right to service stuff that Apple is now agreeing to on phones and other bits and pieces, whether it may be something you can do in the future with the right tools and what have you.
It's possible. Yeah, I don't know how you'd get around with the pairing of the ID thing. But,
that's true.
But yeah, possible. I don't know.
Yeah.
How do we feel about this news anyway? I mean, yeah, okay, it's not like it's a user upgradable Mac, really.
No, but I think it is good that, in something that hasn't, because you got the argument with a MacBook Pro that it's got to be soldered on because of space considerations, which is valid. Not totally valid, but there is some argument for that, and that's a very common manufacturing technique that's been around for decades. But in something with this much space in it, it just shows a good possible path that Apple may take with it. I think it's a good thing, but possibly not the greatest news that we would like, which is a fully user serviceable machine. But then that's never really been, apart from the Mac Pro, it's never really been Apple's thing. I know you could upgrade your RAM and things, and there was a time when you could put a bigger hard drive in your MacBook Pro, but those days are long gone.
I wonder, though, with the new Mac Pro, whether we'll see those same sockets, and maybe there'll be more of them in the Mac Pro, and you will be able to populate. So perhaps you'll have a couple of system sockets, but then there's a couple more that you can populate, and Apple will then make a killing selling the proprietary SSDs.
Yeah, because it'll only be Apple that can sell that particular one. I could see that being a thing, and I can see that being a business model that Apple would pursue because it protects the income for Apple. But it would be a good thing at the same time for those that need it.
And it comes to that time of the podcast where we're going to break out some heavy rap and move into the Rumour Mill.
Shall we do it, Tom? Do it.
Constant geekery, you already know the name. Turn the volume up, this is Pete and Dave. What rumours have you heard? Let us test the claim. Are they facts or are they lies? Let us play the game. Let's talk about the tech, come and see what is up next. Now you're tuned in to the Rumour Mill. Tell me, is it true? Are they doing it for views? You're now tuned in to the Rumour Mill. Well, let's find out, nowhere to hide now. You're now tuned in to the Rumour Mill. Woo!
So, assuming that the jingle has just been conveniently edited by Tom, what have we got on the Rumour Mill this week?
We got 3 things, okay? And as usual, we'll do our usual grading system for them. So the first thing here is by probably one of the most trusted sources of Apple rumours, Mark Gurman from Bloomberg. Reportedly, the redesigned MacBook Air, so there is a redesigned MacBook Air coming, which we have talked about before, is going to be delayed to the second half of 2022. That's the first rumour.
So do we take that one first?
Yeah, let's do. I have split them.
Okay.
So yeah.
So this is of the this type of rumor where it's like this is going to happen and then it doesn't happen. So instead of saying I was wrong, it's now delayed.
Yeah.
Is it that kind of rumor that we're talking about? Because I don't. I mean, we've talked about this, or the redesigned MacBook Air. Is there a redesigned MacBook Air, or will the MacBook Air get a new design? Yes, I think it absolutely will. Will it get the M2 chip when it comes out? Yes, I think so. Will that be this year or anytime soon? I can't see it personally.
Can I be devil's advocate again?
You can.
I know what you're saying about sometimes people can't say they're wrong and they say, oh, it's just been delayed. But we are in a very unusual circumstance where lots of stuff is getting delayed because of supply chains and other horrendous things going on.
But I can't help but feel that it's not the right time to introduce M2. And I saw an insightful comment actually from iCave Dave the other day where he said, consumers have been trusted to make decisions between an i3 and i5 and i7. Is it really that confusing if Apple brings out an M2? And no, I don't think so if Apple were to clearly explain how it works, but they won't do that. What Apple will do is talk about how amazing the M2 is, how it's going to change lives and make creative processes possible that were never previously possible, and then they'll probably peel over the M1 and rubbish it. And then people will be left in this mindset of, is this actually replacing M1? If they see M1 in the name of something, do they then think, well, M2 is better because it's one more? I don't know. Is it the right time to do it, or should they finish the Apple transition that they keep talking about finishing within the 2 years with the one machine that's left, the Mac Pro, and then move on to M2?
Well, that's always been our position, and I don't see any reason to change it.
No. So will that happen then? I guess it comes down to, will that happen in the second half of 2022? Bear in mind that the 2 years from Apple's timing standard goes to the middle of November this year.
I
That's
could
the
see it
end.
happening at the end of the year.
Okay. At the same event as the Mac Pro? Or
No,
No, I don't think so.
no. Mac Pro will get its own event, I think.
It's the kind of thing that Apple might want to have out before Christmas, though, isn't it?
It is.
A MacBook Air.
Yeah,
So maybe there is something to it.
maybe.
I'm going to go amber.
Okay, we'll go amber. And then connected with that same rumour circulating is no new high-end MacBook Pro likely until next year. Now, for me, this was a little bit of a hand in the moment, having a conversation with Erin kind of moment, because of course there's not going to be another high-end MacBook Pro until next year.
Why would anyone expect that?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. Sorry, Erin, I'm being very unkind to you today, but
It's
we do like you,
fine.
despite your specialness. I just... So I suppose what we're saying is no new high-end MacBook likely until next year. How do we rate that? I would say green. How do we rate the fact that it was ever anything but that? I don't know what colour to use for that, but it's just like...
Bit of a silly rumour, really. I think it is getting to the point where this stuff is selling. You know, I mean, are we any different, Pete? I mean,
Yes.
we've been talking about Apple on the podcast now for 3 episodes straight, and it's probably time to change the channel. But
yeah, we have got something different next week. Have we? No, we have. Well, we have. It's about Apple, but it's about something very different.
the fact remains, though, when I release content on the main channel that is Apple focused, it tends to get attention. It tends to pick up subscribers. And when we release tech videos of stuff that we like or that interest us, they tend not to. And I mean, the Android video did quite well. That did, and we got some more Android stuff coming. But it seems to be a lot of the time that you release content, and some of the audience, and certainly not all of the audience, but some of the audience are coming for confirmation of what they already think. That it's like, I want to believe this product is better than that product. This person appears to have a video that says that, so they come in to watch it. And if you're not saying that, they then get upset. And
Yeah, quite possibly.
But the fact remains, I'm sure other YouTube channels have the same thing. You talk about Apple, you get the views. And if you're in YouTube to make money, then that's what people are going to talk about.
Which kind of doesn't make it the free landscape of being able to talk about things freely, because YouTube is rewarding stuff it knows will do well, rather... I don't know what I'm saying there, but you know what I'm saying.
I just think the tech landscape is changing, and it has changed in the last 2 years already. And there's a lot more people hoping to make a career out of YouTube. And if you're thinking about doing that, what I would say to you is it's really hard, and you're going to spend a lot more money than you'll make. I'm still running my channel at a loss, so it's a long game, and only a few manage to make it. And
Do it. Do not.
you've got to do it because you like it.
Yeah, do it for the love of it. Don't do it based on don't make it your primary career choice, because for all the ones that make it and make a tidy income, there are the vast majority that don't. And we're not saying don't do it, but just go into it with your eyes open. But next week we are going to be talking about Apple again. At least that's what we've got planned at this point, assuming that the Apple event doesn't happen next week that's being talked about. Dead air. You can't have dead air on a podcast for those.
Well,
others.
because
And
I'm
Dave's
just
looking
like-
at me incredulously.
Well, it's like, it has. And what's going through my brain is, this is Pete. I've worked with Pete for a long time. I know what Pete's like. Has he actually heard about an Apple event that I haven't heard about, or is he just winding me up?
I am just really curious to see if we have enough traction to actually start a rumour, just for the fun of it.
I suspect not.
No,
We have the princely sum of about 1,200 and so subscribers on
but
the
they're
podcast.
subscribers that are loyal, and we love having you with
We
us. and
certainly
thank you
do.
for that.
Absolutely,
So-
we do. Yeah, but I feel like we're possibly not in that arena.
Yeah, possibly not. Any more rumours before we finish for today?
I don't have any more rumours to offer.
I have one. Erin
Yeah.
won't be on the podcast next week because, as an icon of fashion, she has got a role with Louis Vuitton to work on their new range of knitted hazmat suits. So we wish you all the best with that, Erin.
Thank you.
And
Thanks very much.
I'm sure corduroy and radiation go well together.
Can I just say that you've spelt Vuitton wrong in the notes?
That shows you how much. Actually, speaking about Louis Vuitton and tech, did you see the Louis Vuitton bag that changes colour?
No.
So you got a Louis Vuitton luggage bag, and you know it's always emblazoned with the VL logo.
Assume that I know something about fashion and that I know that.
And it had been just plastered with the logo in a recurring pattern, and it had it had tech in it so that it would change colour and flash through the RGB. Very tacky looking, but if you're into that sort of thing, it's a bit like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book, where you got the rock star with the really expensive ship painted in a horrible colour that says, not only am I rich enough to afford this very expensive Rolls-Royce equivalent ship, but I'm also rich enough to not care what it looks like.
Okay, that's good. Erin, would you like a bag like that?
No.
Okay, well, there we go on that.
Bomb. Actually, that's almost Clarkson-esque, isn't it, on that bombshell?
Well, it's not Clarkson-esque. It is what they do.
Yeah.
It's his trademark.
Let's not do it then.
No, we shouldn't say it. But on the other hand, we should end the podcast because I feel like we've degenerated into rambling.
Sorry, folks. I'm just going to say cheerio.
I'll do the same. Cheerio. Are you going to say bye, Erin? Or
No,
you just
I'll just goodbye.
This has to be the worst production values ever.
I think that's our worst podcast in a long time. Sorry, folks, if you're still watching. I don't know when Tom's going to finish the edit. He might leave this stuff in.